last years of the 19th century, that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space. No one could have dreamed we were being scrutinized as someone with a microscope studies creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of life on other planets. And yet, across the gulf of space, minds immeasurably superior to ours regarded this Earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.
Broadcasting live from a tiny studio somewhere in North America. This is Dark Matters Radio Live. And now I give you your host, the silverback of ufology. Here's Don Ecker.
Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new show of Dark Matters Radio. And we're going to be hitting a topic tonight that is coast to coast all over the map. And before we go there, and I tell you exactly what it is, I got to ask you, have you noticed that things are so out of whack, it's almost comical? And if it were funnier, I might laugh. But I'll never forget, and I've said this before. I think I said it here. I'm going to say it again. What the hell? My show. But about 15, 18 years ago, one morning, as usual, I got up in the wee hours of the morning. I usually get up somewhere between 4:30 and 5:30, sometimes 6 o'clock, but that's rare. And I stumble out to the kitchen. I get my cup of bean juice just to get my heart going. I sit down and will either turn on a radio or pull out my cell phone and check the news. And one morning, and I forget exactly what it was, but it was something so off the wall that when Vicky came out, my wife came out to get her cup of bean juice, she sat down and I said, "Baby, you ain't gonna believe this." And then I told her whatever it was. Well, there's been so much wackadoodle horse shit since then anyway. Who knows? But it was crazy. And then sitting there thinking about it, I said, "You know what, Vic? CERN, the big collector over there. You know that thing in CERN in Europe where they're looking for the God particle? Well, this is just off the top of my head, but I think somehow they popped open a dimensional doorway and we slipped into it." Well, could be, and I've heard other people say that. So I'm not the only lunatic out there. But anyway, just before the show started, I got a haircut this weekend. And this is my hat that I had waited so patiently for. I had ordered it online, took over a month to get here. It's a U.S. Army hat, okay, 1775 to 2025, 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, of which, of course, I was a part of. And when it got here, and I ripped it out of the wrapping, I looked at it. Where do you think it was made? China. Potentially our biggest adversary. And I thought about that. My God, China. All the money that we've been shipping over there for all the junk that they've been shipping back, something just didn't strike me as right. Here we are in the United States of America, supposedly the biggest economic powerhouse on the planet, and we're getting shit like this from China. Where's the justice? Well, anyway, to get back to tonight's subject. all over the web, even on TV, radio, that interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. 3I, that's kind of a weird name. What's it mean? Well, this is the third object that has been discovered by astronomers that's believed to come from outside of our solar system, and truly an interstellar object. So, just like the UFO field, suddenly people are going crazy about this thing. Now, granted, it is a very odd object. Let us not forget a few years ago, Oumuamua, another interstellar object that entered our solar system. No astronomer on Earth saw it. It came out of the sun, not literally, but from that direction, sped around the planet, our planet, Earth, and took off for parts unknown. We never saw it until it was leaving Earth. And then it sped up. Well, boy, the speculation was rampant about that. But now we have another one. And it's going to be coming between Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, according to the information I've read. And a lot of people are whacked out about it. Why? Well, for one thing, it's not acting like a comet normally acts. It's been expelling things like carbon dioxide, methane, cyanide, elements of nickel, which, hey, I'm not a chemist. I couldn't tell you what that means, but I can read, and I read that a lot of scientists that have acknowledged that are rather mystified about it. Well, then today, just today, 3 different articles I've read online, okay, and granted, a lot of them came from Facebook, are implying other things, that it could possibly be artificial. It could possibly be an extraterrestrial craft of some type. It could possibly be an interstellar extraterrestrial probe. Well, I don't know what the hell to think, but when I was thinking about it, I said, we've got to get Marc Dantonio back on the show, our very own astronomer. And the guy was SkyTour, okay? I mean, he does this stuff 24/7, 365. So without a lot of further ado, let me bring on Mark Center, Gerry Kissell, and our very special guest, Mr. Marc Dantonio. Mark, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, guys. How are you? It's so good to be here.
We're doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing fine. Everything you were saying about this 3I Atlas issue, we got to keep in mind that whenever something like this happens, the internet is open to something that is very little known called clickbait. And everywhere we look is clickbait on this object. And I know a lot about it. I've obviously been following it. I talked to people that know about it and looked at it. I actually took a photograph of it with our SkyTour live stream telescopes as well.
Which you brought to the show.
I did. I actually adjusted it so you could put it on when you want. You don't have to do it now, but whenever. But the point is, it's a very small object. I mean, there it is. Inside that red square, by the way, these are the stars of Sagittarius right here that you're looking at. And in that red square right there is a little dash. That little dash is the object moving Now, at the time, it was moving 1.47 arc seconds per minute. So I had to use our larger, our smaller field, larger telescope down in Benson, Arizona, that we have to actually capture it. But I took a multi-minute shot of it, and the stars are the stars of Sagittarius, and I actually used a filter that doesn't use or doesn't allow all the Milky Way stars to come in. I used something that was specific to the objects like 3I Atlas and some of the brighter stars. That said, I was able to capture 3I Atlas. I did a bunch of shots to try and get it. Anyway, technical stuff aside, this object is, as you pointed out, Don, is one of the most incredible things that's coming into our solar system, primarily because we know what comets look like coming into our solar system. We know where they come from. Okay, they come from our Oort cloud, which is a cloud of cometary, objects, 360 degrees all around every direction. It's a cloud as opposed to a belt.
Now be careful, Mark. You're resembling Gavin Newsom there with all that hand action.
Yeah, except mine is meaningful. Anyway, so to get to this, okay, let me do this. Okay. You do that now. You can see it. This particular cloud of cometary icy particles, they're so far out. They literally extend more than halfway to Alpha Centauri. That's how big our solar system really is, right? Out to that.
That's over 2 light years.
Well, yeah, it's about exactly. And so what happens is the cometary bodies on the outside edge. Over millions of years, a star passes by and the thing moves up and then it comes back down. And that's just enough to dislodge it from that vast Oort cloud to have it start on this long, multi-million year journey into the inner solar system, where it will pass the only thing that has the biggest gravity, and that's the sun. Now, Jupiter plays a role, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, they all play roles, okay, because they're the bigger gravity wells, as we call them. But fact is that comet will enter the inner solar system and generally go around the sun, and then maybe it'll stick and make an elliptical orbit like this, where it makes a really long elliptical orbit, a really narrow, thin, long ellipse. It might do that. Or it might find itself going into an orbit where it comes in at just such an angle that it gets whipped out of our solar system. But the key is that we know how fast objects like that should go. And the reason we know these objects are interstellar, Oumuamua, Borisov, which was the second one to come in, and now Atlas, okay, is that they're moving much faster than an object coming from that outer Oort cloud would ever be able to get to when it came into our solar system, in the inner solar system. So that's how we know they're interstellar. And the other thing that's weird about this, as you already know, and may have mentioned, I think, is that this object it's coming in on the plane of our solar system. Our solar system's in a plane. All the planets are in a plane. And this thing's coming in along the plane. That's very odd. The chances of that are fractional. It's less than 0.5% by far. Okay? So it's actually a 100th, So it's actually a very rare expectation that we would get one coming in on the plane of our solar system. Now, that already makes it exciting, right? Because that means it came from somewhere else in our galaxy along the plane of our solar system. And the only thing along the plane, in this particular case, is something near the galactic disk. Now, our solar system's oddly angled to it, but not, it's still sort of in line a little bit. And so something coming in along the plane of our solar system was kind of unexpected. So,
no, wait right there a second.
Waiting right here.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I read something, and I have no idea, Mark. I am not an astronomer, never even played one on TV. But I read an article that suggested our solar system, Sol, the sun, our planets, may have come from outside the Milky Way galaxy. Have you heard anything about that, or do you give any credence to that?
I can't speak to what's in the Oort cloud. Is it possible that the sun captured something that was another interstellar interloper, or an intergalactic interloper, extragalactic interloper? I can't say no, But the fact is, it's probably rare. And the reason is because we look at the ages of all the planets in our solar system. And when we look at, radioactive dating and so forth, we can date, the isotopes we see. We can get an idea how old each of these planets are. And they all come in around 4.6 billion years or so. So it shows us that if it was formed outside of our galaxy, it would have to have been moving quite fast, come in and slow down and stop and go into an orbit around our sun. That's highly unlikely. In fact, that's I can't say it's zero, but it's...
No, I meant the sun too, not just the planets.
The sun has an established orbit around our galaxy. And so we know the sun has gone 19 and a half or so times around our galaxy, orbiting our big old giant 150,000 light year galaxy. We know that it's going around that circumference, not, it's 2/3 of the way or so, a little less. So it's about every 230 million years or so, it goes around the galaxy.
And then something else happens, doesn't it? It seems that at certain times in our history, something on the outer reaches of the Oort cloud disturbs the Oort cloud. There's been speculation about possibly a dwarf star very close to us, relatively speaking, of course, that has not yet been spotted by Earth-based astronomers, but it disturbs the Oort cloud, and then like a shotgun blast, throws a lot of material into the inner solar system.
I've heard that thought. Now, when I was getting my degree in astronomy, one of the things I worked on was the parallax program. And the parallax program is the study of nearby stars and finding nearby stars in every direction. Okay, so I spent hours and hours and hours and years in a major observatory taking photographs of nearby stars at one end of the Earth's orbit and then doing the same thing at the other end of the Earth's orbit. So now we have like two eyes, okay, left and right eye. And when you blink, your finger, when you do this, your finger, dances against the background by a little bit. And the closer it is, the more it shifts. The farther away it is, the less it shifts. So if you measure that angle of shift, okay, of your finger, you can tell exactly how far away you are from your finger. Now, that's a silly example, but imagine the finger being a nearby star and the wall being distant stars. When the Earth's orbit is the distance between your two eyes. Okay, so we can actually figure out to about 300 light years, we can figure out the distance to all these nearby stars. And we've done a lot of that. Now, a dwarf star is still luminous. We're going to get what's called luminosity from a dwarf star. They're typically M-class stars. And even the smallest ones are only slightly about the same size as Jupiter, maybe a little bigger. But they're still stars, and they will show up in stellar surveys. And we've never seen anything like that. However, we're at a particular point in our galaxy. If we orbit around the galaxy, maybe we do come by and have come by something. And maybe on our orbit, as we go through, remember, we're not alone. We're going through with other stars, so we're all going around together. Okay, now they're all moving relative to each other, and there's galactic and gravitational interactions all around. As you can see, this kind of gives the impression, and they're doing this all along as they go through. And then as they do that, some stars get lost, which was my thesis, looking at runaway B stars in the galaxy, which are bright, hot blue stars. And some actually end up coming into tighter, associations with other stars. But they all tend to, go around and at the same relative speed at the certain distance away from the center of the galaxy that we are. And that brings up all the dark matter stuff. We won't talk about that. But the bottom line is that as we pass other stars, as we go around, we could indeed find that we go through a relatively dense section of the galaxy where there's more stars that we're entering and leaving behind as we go. And maybe it could set things off. But what you have to understand is it's not periodic. There's no schedule. We can't say, we're 10 million years from the next big giant disturbance to our outer Oort cloud, because the star positions are changing every single time. Sometimes stars are big that we pass. Sometimes there's none. Sometimes there's a few. Sometimes there's a lot. So it changes every time we orbit the galaxy. And that's been about 19 and a half or 20 times or so.
So I got a question about these 3 times they've seen these things come in.
Yes.
Is that is that a reflection of the technology that we had, that we didn't see them before, and now we have technology that makes them a little bit more that we can see them? So could things like this have come through, not like taxis, but could they have been coming through and we just couldn't see them? We couldn't recognize them.
Absolutely. I'm certain that other interstellar objects have come and gone. We've only seen 3. But it could have been 300.
And why? And for people like me and Gerry, of course, why are we seeing them now? What technology is allowing us to see them now?
Well, I mean, it's 3i/Atlas. Atlas is a set of telescopes around the world whose primary job, and this is not something that's been around for 50 years, okay? Its primary job is to find near-Earth objects or objects in our solar system that would previously have been unfound. And so Atlas is doing this job. That's why, we found 1I Oumuamua. That's why we found 2I Borisov. Now, 3I Atlas, Atlas is just the name of the telescope systems that found it. Okay. So I imagine the International Astronomical Union will probably give 3I Atlas a formal name, because that's not the formal name. I mean, TRAPPIST-1 is a star system of a small dwarf red star, like we're talking about, and it has 7 planets around it, and 3 of them look like they're in the habitable zone. And all of them are within the orbit of Mercury to our sun, because the stars are so small and so much less luminous, but still luminous, that planets would be much closer to make them in the habitable zone. That said, the TRAPPIST-1 system, that name has remained. And TRAPPIST is the name of the small telescopes that are searching for these types of things. So that name remains. So 3i/Atlas, it could remain that name.
Okay. Yeah, I was because of Facebook, social media and stuff, that drives me freaking crazy to see all this crap that's in. And you did mention that in the little, I think you put out a paper on it, I think, or
I did. I couldn't handle it anymore.
No, and I read that and I said, this guy's right, because I'm reading all this stuff, and like I said before the show came on, I saw the latest one, and it looked like a Oumuamua but white, and I'm like,
I know the one you're talking about. I know the one you're talking about. Yes.
Yes. This is problematic for society in general. I mean, all of this crap is out there. Everybody's doom scrolling, right? And they see this stuff, and I don't know. I'm not happy about it. I'm just it pisses me off.
It really pissed me off when they showed this conical looking thing, kind of stretched. Yeah. And they said, latest picture released from Oumuamua. I said, no, that's the planet killer from the Doomsday Machine episode of Star Trek, the original series. And then, I couldn't put this in as a video, but I wanted to. I'd say, don't you think I know that? There was, but not anymore. When the planet got destroyed, right. He pulled his crew down too. They were yelling at me. I couldn't help them. Okay, yeah, I got.
By the way, that's a really good Commodore Decker.
Yeah, that's a Commodore Decker, right? Yeah. So it was kind of funny. How they actually, I don't know how people think they could pull that off and pull it over on everybody. And they stretched it to make it look longer, because that's what they think it should look like. Because they heard that Oumuamua was a long spindle. It wasn't. Exactly. It was actually a pancake. It was a flat, roundish pancake. And so it was tumbling as it came through our solar system, which could explain the burst of speed, going flat as it leaves, more solar radiation hits it, it goes faster, maybe. I don't know. But the bottom line,
as usual, though, Mark, and you need to comment on this, is that that we wouldn't have even seen it if it hadn't sped up. It was completely off our radar until it sped up.
Well, the thing was, we weren't really looking for it either, and that's part of the problem. Now we're looking for them. So you can expect we're going to see a lot more objects like this. And I'm sorry, Mark, but we're going to see a lot more clickbait.
Oh yeah. It's just
No.
it's just when I looked at this, and again, I don't know anything about any of this stuff, but when I look at this, the way that I think is always, well, wait a minute. They've saw 3 of these things. They may have been 3,000 of these things that came through and actually sped up and did all of this stuff with the nickel
Absolutely.
and everything. But
Right.
That doesn't discount this at all. It doesn't discount the 40% chance it could be an ET craft. I'm not discounting any of that stuff, but people seem to forget that we've been here a long time, and weird stuff has been going on a long time.
But also keep in mind that we're not as advanced as we might otherwise be. And do you guys know why we're not as advanced as we might otherwise be?
China?
What's the reason? Not China, not the invention of pizza. No. What's the reason? You know this. You do. You just okay.
The Younger Dryas event that wiped out a previously.
He's onto something. Yes. The 5 major extinction events we had on the planet. They wiped life almost off the face of the earth. 252
The Dawn. This is why I have this show.
You are the silverback. You are the Dawn. I'm not worthy. Thank you for having me. Okay. I mean that. Do you like me? So
Please like me.
please like me. So I ended up, talking about 252 million years ago during the Permian period. There was a vast volcanic eruption, from what we can tell. And it looks very much like this is what happened in the region now, Siberia. Remember, the Earth was still, it still wasn't, the United States and Europe like we see it now. There was more bunched up. We had more of a Pangea event at that time, right? It took some time for Pangea to break up. Well, anyway, and the oceans hadn't opened up yet, but we were getting more and more water. And during that time, we actually had a period of time where the volcanic eruptions were going erupting, trying to erupt, but there was a big permafrost layer in Siberia because it was cold there, and so it spread horizontally underground. All right, and as the lava spread magma, as it spread horizontally underground, the magma encountered organic debris, liberating lots of carbon dioxide. So much so that for miles and miles and miles around this leakage of magma into the underlying strata, and you'd have fumaroles and steam coming out here or there, but for miles and miles and miles, all this carbon dioxide was being pushed along. And when it finally could liberate itself, we got tens of gigatons, that's tens of billions of tons of CO2 liberated into the atmosphere all at once. Okay. Now you might say, SUVs. Yeah, right. Cows. Well, that carbon dioxide that got liberated caused, of course, it's a greenhouse gas, and it caused the temperature to rise 21 degrees in a short time. And that caused the oxygen in the oceans to be less capable of staying in the water because of the heat. And so what ended up happening was all the creatures in the water that depended on oxygen, which were, most of them, ended up dying. And so we ended up with a 96% loss of life 252 million years ago. Now, had that not happened, everything would have changed. Because it did, there's creatures that were able to handle that increase in carbon dioxide. And guess what those were?
Dinosaurs.
Yes, exactly. And thus began the age of the dinosaurs. It started right after that Permian extinction, because now we had all these empty niches and things rushing in to fill all the niches. Nature abhors a vacuum, so it filled it in with more life. And so those became the dinosaurs, and they were very successful. They ruled all the way to 65 million years ago. Now, in the interim, we had 3 other extinction events based on biodiversity failures, where there was a failure to thrive in the animal world. And so certain things didn't do this adaptation. Usually if you have one common ancestor, it begets like a bunch of other spokes off of it. And this becomes the common ancestor of like 50 or more different subspecies. Well, as it turns out, that failed. And so we only had a couple spokes here and there. And so overall, the number of different creatures dwindled. So that amounted to like a 76% extinction rate, because the overall effect was 76% of life just seemed to disappear. And then that happened several times. And then finally, 65 million years ago, we got the assault once again. And now we lost, over 75% of life on the planet from that. And so we were stunted, time and time again, because during the Permian period, way back 252 million years ago, before the eruption, do you know what creatures were dominant on the planet at the time?
Amphibians, I believe.
Well, but actually, yes, the creatures that would become mammals, which is you and me and everybody else. So the mammals were already, not the mammals, pre-mammals, got to be careful, were starting to reach dominance, and they were wiped out because they couldn't handle the temperature change. And so what would we look like now had none of that happened? Had we not had that major extinction, had we didn't have the other three biodiversity failures, or even if we did, because it wasn't that much each, and we didn't have an extinction event at the KT boundary, which is the 65 million years ago Kissell event, whatever you call it, whatever you want to call it. So we might look very different. We certainly would. But we would also possibly have advanced to intellect a lot sooner. Now, there's no guarantee you're going to get intelligence in a planet, right? If that was the case, I would think the octopus should be running all of the 7-Elevens, okay? But it's not, okay? And that's because environmental pressures determine where a species is going to go to best excel in that niche. And in this particular case, dolphins, top of their niche. Octopus, smartest invertebrate in the ocean, in the world, actually. Okay, the octopus is smarter than any other animal but man. Isn't that incredible?
It's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and we eat them in Japan in a Japanese restaurant.
Yummy, yummy.
I can't do it anymore. Anyway, so that said, so we have all these failures here on our planet. And the reason is because we have tectonic plates. They bump and grind into each other. I know, make the jokes.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
They bump and grind. They raise lumps. Go ahead, make the jokes. Okay. And they make like the Himalaya mountains. They make the Rocky Mountains. India slammed into the Asian subcontinent. You can actually see the skid marks of India slamming and dragging its tectonic plate into the Asian tectonic plate. You can actually see that on a map of the ocean floor. So all of that makes earthquakes, makes tsunamis, makes volcanic eruptions. And all of those things are detrimental to us. We don't like those things. They can kill us, and they have. Banda Aceh, 300,000 people died in a massive tsunami caused by the Sumatran earthquake. Okay. I mean, that's crazy. We lost the nuclear reactors at Fukushima because of a magnitude 7.9 earthquake that shook and put a tsunami that swamped generators at Fukushima, causing the reactors to go critical and drying out storage ponds and all that. And they just blew up. And the hydrogen explosion, it actually polluted 5,000 square miles around the reactor. So, we're trying to extinct ourselves in some way. Okay. But so all that said, it really comes down to the fact that we look just like we do, exactly as we do, because of all of the major extinction events on this planet. What might we look like otherwise? What might you look like, Gary? I wonder. Maybe you'd have yellow eyes. Maybe you'd be like a relative of a dinosaur. We do know during that time, before the extinction, there was one dinosaur called the Troodon, Troodon, ends with Don. The Troodon, which was the most intelligent dinosaur, and its cranial capacity was skyrocketing at the time. So what would have happened to the Troodon? Could that have become an intelligent animal? There's speculation. Well, it might have become intelligent as a really well-trained dog or a smart dog or more.
Let me get just a tad conspiratorial.
Please do. I'll sit back.
MUFON, the WOW, what is it, guys? The WOW?
The WOW
website.
Oh, yes. Dan Harari's publication.
Exactly. Last month, they ran my disclosure document, and I was just notified today that they're running my Wilson Davis document I wrote. And so I went back this morning when I saw that he had notified me that he was running that. I read through it, and it hit me. Now, in both those documents, I talked, first off, let me say this. When I was in the military, I was involved in Southeast Asia in intelligence matters, okay? So the reason I mention that is I have somewhat of a working knowledge how a lot of these things are done. And in some cases, why they're done, trying to achieve certain outcomes, okay, from doing various things. Not always, believe me, on the up and up, okay? So with that being said, I recalled that when I was watching on the History Channel a few years ago, Unidentified, and on there, okay, they had Christopher Mellon, a former Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, Luis Elizondo, purportedly running a secret UFO investigative thing in the Pentagon, former head of the Skunk Works for Lockheed, okay, Hal Puthoff, all right, a guy that's worked both for NSA and the CIA, and of course, a rock and roll musician, Tom DeLonge. Now, I got to tell you, that always kind of blew my mind. And I'm not going to get into why that blew my mind. But anyway, I noticed one thing about that show. Every episode ended with a drum beat. And the drum beat was UFOs could potentially be a threat. Now, suddenly, we have 3I Atlas zooming through the solar system, going in excess of 135,000 miles per hour. That's quick, that's fast. And all the drum beating about, is it alien? Is it ET? Is it a spaceship? Not an asteroid, not a comet, but something else. And now there are those who are claiming it's going to release a mass of tiny probes at Earth around Halloween. Now, how the hell anybody would know that, I have no idea. Yeah. But with that being said, Mark, yes, you've had some experience with intelligence.
I think it's rumored I have some.
Yes. No, but not mentally. I'm talking about military intelligence.
Okay. Yeah.
Military intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible in your purview that somebody might have piggybacked on this whole thing, working toward an end by pushing this possibly as artificial?
I would have to say, look, he left. No, I have to say.
Yeah, I asked my question. I'm gonna listen to the radio show now.
Right. I'm gonna go listen and watch the game.
Right.
Now, is it possible that it's some kind of psyop of some kind? I know that they've done them. Very much so. I know that when I was working on a project that was seen over a lake in Idaho, that I was working on it for the Navy actually, and they saw this object flying in the sky. They reported it as a UFO, but I knew exactly what it was. So I called the program office. They start with the letters PMS, which is hilarious. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to work in the San Antonio class project, a surface ship, expeditionary craft or whatever, and that was PMS 317. Well, anyway, I called the PMS office for this particular project because that's the one I was working on, and I said, "Hey, they reported this thing as a UFO." And the guy laughed and he said, "That's great." I go, "No, okay," because he says, "Yeah, it'll keep them at bay. They won't know what to do. They won't get anything." I said, "Yeah, well, this one guy sent me photographs of it." Okay, we called it the Birdie at the time. It's actually public now. And I said, and he's going to go back and tell all his friends, and then 10 people are going to show up the next day and take photographs of the Birdie. And then those 10 are going to tell friends. Next thing you know, you got an exponentially large crowd on the banks of this lake waiting and watching everything you do. Is that what you want? And he was quiet for a minute. You almost could hear crickets, And then a moment later, he says, what do you need? I said, all I need is for you to let people know it's one of ours. You don't have to say what it is. As long as they know it's one of ours, they'll all go home. Okay, and you'll stop the conspiracy right dead in its tracks, okay, because they think that the Navy is in on it with aliens here. And I know exactly what this is. I built models of it. And the guy sent an email to me. I sent it out to the person who had photographed the things flying. And just as promised, everybody went home when they found out it was one of ours. Okay, so sometimes, in other words, that's my illustration that they sometimes use the UFO topic to cover for some of the things they're doing. Now, doing a wanton act of, hey, let's tell them it's this, and maybe we can use that or something. I wouldn't put it past them, but there's really no evidence that they're doing that.
No evidence as of yet.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, could it? Yeah, maybe. And I'd be stupid to say it never happens. Then you're going to have me sound like one of these other stuffed shirts out there that will always just deny. And I'm not that way. I think that, I know how I would act, and I can't project that on how everybody else acts, and none of us can do that. So
I think that's one thing missing with you, Mark. Maybe you need to work on is a little more pomposity.
I could try. I could say, look,
make that.
I could say, look, I'm the biggest image on the screen. Ha ha. How's that? That work?
So what's your view on, and I put this in our notes that the public can't see, Loeb said the biggest unresolved question about the interstellar object 3I Atlas involves the size of the nucleus. This was in July. I don't know if that's still the case or not. What do you say, Mr. Pomposity?
Well, if I lower myself to communicate with you,
there we go.
Yeah, as if I would have to say the truth is that we don't know yet. Obviously, it could be anywhere from a quarter mile across to 28 miles across.
Okay.
All now right. The thing is, and those are actual, statistical calculated variations. As far as what it's made of, well. Right now, we see it outgassing like comets outgas. However, it's outgassing way more carbon dioxide than we've seen in comets. A comet outgas of CO2, carbon dioxide, is a carbon with 2 oxygen atoms, right? CO2. Okay. Well, that and carbonyl sulfide, which is COS, okay, a sulfur atom instead of one of the oxygens. That's coming off too. But carbon dioxide is the primary element. There is cyanogen, CN, carbon and nitrogen, which is what you mentioned before, Don, with the cyanide. Okay. And there's other stuff outgassing. There's water, obviously, and so forth. But carbon dioxide is the primary element. Now, the primary compound. I have a feeling that this is a different type of comet than we've seen before. And the reason is probably due to its origin. It comes probably from our galactic disk and migrated down to start circling, or come into our sun's environment. And it's on what's called a hyperbolic path. Remember, I talked about elliptical paths for objects. Sometimes they come in and go out. Well, this one is on a hyperbolic path, meaning it has nowhere near the low speed to have the sun keep it here. It's nowhere near that. It's way higher. So it has what's called the escape velocity already of the sun's gravity. So it's going to go, if this microphone is the thing, it's going to go, phew, okay, and just head on out of the solar system at, as Don said, 137,000 miles per hour. Okay, way faster than an object disturbed from the Oort cloud I talked about earlier. So that's, it's definitely interstellar. Well, I think that, if, when Avi talked about these things, he says that it's a possibility. He doesn't say it is alien. He says we have to keep our minds open enough to look at it as a possible alien craft because its trajectory is coming in along our solar system. That's a very rare expectation, okay? A fraction of 1%, a very fraction of 1%. So that said, and it's going to visit Jupiter, Mars, and then Venus on the way out. So it's like, wow, well, that's interesting. But
now, one thing there, let me interject this.
Yes.
Talking about Jupiter, Mars, Venus.
Yeah.
Currently, there are probes around Jupiter and Mars.
Yes.
There have been a contingent of people trying to get NASA to utilize those satellites to take photos of it. And
including Avi.
Up to this point, I have not heard NASA address this at all. Do you have any thoughts about why that might be, Mark?
There's a lot of reasons why they can't or couldn't. Now, the Juno probe at Jupiter is one you're talking about with Jupiter.
Right.
And Juno is giving us unprecedented images of that planet going over the poles. So it's in a elliptical orbit. It circles by the pole, then goes back out, and then comes back in, and goes back out. And it's an elliptical orbit like that. However, to get it to even look at 3i Atlas, that they may be able to do, but they certainly can't get it to rendezvous because Atlas is traveling way faster than Juno ever could. So if they try to get it to go, it'd be like this. Here comes Juno. It's like, oh, I missed you, boy. You went by. It's like gone. So it wouldn't get there in time because it's not going right around Jupiter. It's going to be a long distance from Jupiter. I think I got to look it up. I think it's over a couple million miles at least that it's going to pass by Jupiter. I could be wrong about that. But it's far enough away where it's not certain that they could ever get anything more from a Juno look at it than they can with a James Webb as it comes.
Well, they're talking about sending Juno, crashing it into the atmosphere of Jupiter.
Yeah, that's how they
ended. It's about ended its lifetime.
In September, it's gonna. So my thought was, actually, as I think is it this month? Maybe, but anyway, its life expectancy is now measured in weeks, and so you might say, well, geez, why not use what remaining fuel it has to, do whatever we can? But the thing is, looking at this object with the James Webb, it's got so much stuff around it, that Juno's not going to be able to see into the core and see what it is either. So it's going to look like a bigger fuzzy ball. I mean, we might get more.
Is
more
there
data.
any technology available to get a better shot of it before it's out of reach?
We have until October, right? To get, or December rather, to actually try to execute something, but we didn't know it was coming, so we couldn't plan for it. So anything would be thrown together and could only end up doing like an Earth orbit thing. So retasking James Webb 1 million miles away to look at it was a good thing to do. And it preempted a lot of science that the James Webb was going to do. So that's a good thing. Excuse me. As far as trying to have another probe go see it, there's really no other probes that could do that. Now, we had the New Horizons probe, which went out past Pluto into the Kuiper Belt, saw that object Ultima Thule, which was two pancakes kind of glued together, called a contact binary. And that was cool. But that's in a totally different direction. So New Horizons out, you can't see anything. So really, there's really nothing we have to bring to bear on this.
All right.
Other than
I'd like to ask you something. It's sort of a social thing in that Loeb is got the pedigree, smart guy, right? I mean, he's been around a long time. I'm sure he's respected. And I don't want you to bag on the guy, but I don't know anybody else to ask these sorts of questions too. Yeah. Why would somebody like that even want to dip his toe into the endless responses on social media, which, like it or not, is how people get their news now, that if he says that it's 40-60 or 30-70 chance that maybe it's ET, you're not going to see the 70 on there that it's a comet on social. You're just not going to see it. I haven't seen it. I'm always going to see the 30-40. So he's a smart guy and he knows this. Is it that he just wants to be a forward thinker? I don't know the guy, or I don't think he wants clicks or attention, but it just seems like an interesting position to put oneself in when you're a hyper educated guy, to put yourself in this position in the society that we have today.
I agree. I know him personally, and the guy is actually, he's very open. And he's just saying what is the truth. And it's just that, basically, for better or for worse, he's just telling the truth. It has characteristics that we would imbue in an alien probe going to another solar system if we could. We'd visit as many planets as we could on the way through, because it would be a one-way trip. And that right there says something. Now, I think that he's just very open, and if his honesty is getting misconstrued, it's not his fault. Okay, and so I think that the onus is on the people who are taking what he says and mixing it up for their personal
but that's expected right now. It's obviously expected right now with all the shit we're seeing on the news and social media and Congress and Luna and Lou and all this stuff. Obviously, if you're going to say this, you know what's going to happen at this time in our society.
And so we ask the question, should we then therefore not tell the truth? And the answer is no, we should tell the truth. Let the chips fall where they may.
Well, what truth are you talking about?
The truth that the opinion that he offers is the truth. All right. If you look at isn't it more of an assumption based on? No. There's no assumptions here. He's just offering a possibility. And if a news organization says, Avi Loeb says it's alien, but he didn't. He said we can't deny the possibility that this could be an alien probe.
Right.
All right. But his own words. But I do believe that it more than likely will just turn out to be an extraordinary comet that we've not seen before. He said that too.
Yes.
Right? So he's being very careful about what he says. And social media is saying Harvard astrophysics chair, he said it's alien, and pass that on.
Well, let's be honest,
it's alien. Next thing you know,
it's not just social media.
I know,
but regardless, you mentioned that it's releasing things that are very interesting. Have there been objects, comets or otherwise, that we've been able to investigate in the past that were releasing odd things? Not the norm.
Generally, the comets that are in our Oort cloud, they're kind of the same family. Halley's Comet, Swift-Tuttle, all these comets, they have a lot of dust on their surface that is liberated when the sun heats up the gases that are trapped in the molecules of dust and they're there. And the dust is released, spewing, a gas out as well. Comets have these jets on them that spew. We saw them very well with Churyumov-Gerasimenko, the Rosetta mission comet to that peanut-shaped asteroid or comet. And when it did that, we saw these beautiful jets. And the comets themselves, the surface is almost black. And that's because of billions of years of cosmic rays striking the surface material. And so one of the things we want to consider is that, when we look at the composition of comets, they pretty much follow the same line. We see cyanogen, CN, carbon, nitrogen. We see carbon monoxide, CO. We see CO2, carbon dioxide. Usually we only see maybe 3 to 4% carbon dioxide. This comet is mostly carbon dioxide, and I have a thought about why. And so as we also see other things, we see a spectrum of the materials that the comet's made of. There might be some iron compounds in the soil. We might see nickel. We see a lot of nickel without iron in this one, so it's odd. Okay, and I have an idea why too. Okay, but the core of the comet's going to be some kind of rock, some kind of seed object that became the comet. And a comet is just an asteroid that's surrounded by lots of ices of all kinds. Okay, so we're going to have methane ices. We're going to have other ices, CO2 ice. We're going to have water ice. We're going to have other radicals that are tied in to the surface compounds. It's a really complex chemical slurry.
So when we come back from break, let's pick up with some people are saying that it's internally lit, for lack of a better term, that it's glowing because of what's inside of it and not from the sun or whatever. So when we
gang, we are at the top of the hour for the break. This is Dark Matters Radio. Tonight, Marc Dantonio giving us his expertise on this interstellar object 3I Atlas. Got a heck of a lot more coming up, so stick around. And we are back. Mark, in the interim, during the break, he didn't hear anything about a possible Romulan, Klingon, or Andorian presence on this thing.
I didn't hear a thing.
Okay. That's good. That's for
liar.
I know, right?
So did I hear correctly that some people were postulating that it was like being lit from the inside and yada yada yada?
Yeah, and the reason that I think people came up with that is because, and it just takes one person to make the comment when they see what should be a small object, and thank you, C&D boy. When you see what's a small object and it looks very bright, then they make the assumption that it's an object being lit from the inside. Its luminosity is puzzling, but it's not something that is outrageous. It's luminous because it's got a gigantic coma of material around it, outgassed dust and so forth, that's reflecting sunlight. And this is why we can't see how big it is, because that's blocking the inner nucleus. So we don't know if it's a quarter mile across or 28 miles across. Right. So it doesn't have its own light. It's reflecting sunlight for sure.
But Mark, it's nuclear powered. I read it on social media.
So it must be true.
Now, here's another one that came up. They were talking about where's the tail? How come we're not seeing a tail on this thing? I like you to. That's why I'm doing this, right? Because I'm so freaking annoyed at all this stuff. At least we have somebody who has a sheepskin on his wall who can talk about this. So where's the tail? And I don't mean the one on you.
Well, that's true. We'd have tails if we were dinosaurs. The truth is that the tail is a bit of a mystery. However, this is the only time we've actually seen a comet come in here from interstellar realms where it's coming in along the plane of our solar system. So there might be a tail there. In fact, it could be buried in that large coma, that area around it that I see and that we see. The other thing too to keep in mind is another question we have is why is it showing lots of nickel atoms in its spectrum when it should show some iron as well, and it doesn't? So why only nickel? That's a big mystery. Why mostly carbon dioxide? That's a big mystery. Okay, so we don't know. Now, if something's giving off gas, you're not going to get light reflecting off it, right? You're just going to get gas. But if something is giving off particles, like this must be, then you're going to get a brighter object. Now, I know at least one person in the chat talked about, could it be an asteroid or coming in like that? I think it was Genghis. And he asked if it could be an asteroid that could have been used by a future technology. And I immediately was reminded of the show that Gary will know called This Island Earth. It was a movie, right, where they came in and they were bombing another planet by guiding asteroids in and dropping them and then taking off at the last minute. Special effects were horrible, but hey, it was the best we had. So it was a fun movie to watch. So
well, it's something he also touched on in Starship Troopers, the book.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That they were projecting asteroids at Earth.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So could it be that? And how do we know? How do we really know? Occam's razor comes into play so much in astronomy. If it's something that looks outlandish, let's think of the simplest possible explanation first, because that may very well be it. And not always, though. I will grant you, not always. Okay. When we saw pulsars for the first time, we had no idea what they were. Hot spots on a star that went supernova, spinning rapidly. We didn't know what they were.
I remember reading in one magazine that one of the theories first was that they thought at first it was a planet or something going around the sun that was causing that blinking out. But then they discovered it's actually a pulsar. Yeah,
they went through the whole gamut. So again, it became it followed the rule of Occam's razor in the end, didn't it? Because they basically said, well, the simplest thing is if a neutron star remaining behind after a supernova had a hot spot on it, and the neutron star is spun up really rapidly because of the way angular momentum changes during a supernova. Then you can have this neutron star spinning hundreds of times per second. And this is something the size of Manhattan Island, spinning hundreds of times per second. I'm not kidding. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, we've seen outrageous things before. And in this case, it is a mystery why it's got so much CO2. But as I mentioned, I think I might have an idea. It's my own. And I haven't mentioned it to Avi. I could. I mean, I've talked to his Galileo team, so I might actually send it out and say, what do you think of this? But my thought is that based on where it formed, it could have an exponentially higher amount of dry ice, carbon dioxide ice on its surface. And as it came closer to our sun, that stuff's going to sublimate right to carbon dioxide gas. And so we might see a lot of carbon dioxide, and I bet you that's what's going on here. This is something that's been in the deep freeze of interstellar space for billions of years. In fact, the age of this object could be about 7 billion years old. 7 billion.
Which would be older than our solar system.
Yeah, 4.6 billion years old is our solar system. And just imagine something 7 billion years old, almost twice the age. If you're traveling through interstellar space, you might tend to attract a lot of gas floating out there. And if it flew through any type of area that was rich, like a supernova remnant or whatever, that may have been rich in some molecules, those will be on the surface. This is an object that could really give us tremendous clues about the interstellar regions outside of our solar system.
It's kind of amazing that, again, as somebody that doesn't know anything about this stuff, I just look up in the sky every morning and night and I see Starlink and I say, Don, UFOs. That you got something out there, let's say 7 billion, 8 billion, 20 billion years, and it never encounters something to disrupt it in a big way, right? Because it's a big, space is huge and there's a lot of stuff in it, but I guess from what I've learned from you, as big as it is there really that much stuff in it? Right?
Well,
because you would think it would hit something at some point or have some kind of a episode out there after 8 billion years.
Yeah, let me actually speak to that to give you an idea of just how vast the distance is between objects of all kinds. You can go into the asteroid belt and take an orbit in the asteroid belt, going around it, just like the asteroids are, going faster than the asteroids, and then make it steering back in, and you may never see an asteroid in the asteroid belt. The thing is, they're so far apart that you may never see one. Secondarily, Cassini flew through Saturn's rings a couple of times, if I recall, and it never hit a single
Never
particle.
hit anything. That's the one. Yeah.
Right. Now we look at Saturn, it looks like a solid ring. How could it not hit anything? Yeah. The closer you get to Saturn, the less the rings are visible. It's an odd thing. When you finally get to where the rings are, just say 1,000 miles away from you, and you're looking down on them, you might not even see them. Yeah. And you could go plunging right through the ring plane and never hit a thing. And maybe only see 1 or 2 ice particles going through, maybe.
Interesting.
So in other words, the distances are huge. And I think that's something people don't really get. They don't understand the scale of the universe,
Well, we base it on the movies we see, right? And on the movies, it's
Star
like
Wars.
It's everything.
Yeah, you go into hyperspace for an hour and you're suddenly at another system.
So here's a
sail between asteroids.
Here's another question that would be from a newbie. So you have a comet, it's got a tail. Now you take anything with a tail and you turn that to you're never going to see the tail, right? So when it comes to what we're looking at there in comets in general, do we always see the tail, or do we have these issues where it's coming at a different direction and we just don't see a tail because we're not going to look at the profile? We're not seeing the profile.
There's two things there. First, to answer that question, yes, it's possible a comet could be coming right at us and the tail would be beyond it and we wouldn't see it. So the comet's coming here, but the tail's back here. We wouldn't see it. Right. We'd turn it sideways. I got that. Okay, that's possible. However, the other thing is the comet being so far away may not be generating enough of a tail yet to be seen. Right. And it depends on the composition. Sometimes you get like right out there where it is now, comets are just icy bodies. The tail only forms when they get close enough for the sun to start getting volatiles, that is things that can easily melt with some small amounts of sunlight to leave the comet and thus displace dust, putting dust in the area around the comet and have it wait behind the comet, and be left in the orbit of the comet. So, that kind of thing is something that we would see. But it may be that this object with all that carbon dioxide, maybe it needs to get closer to the sun before we'll see a tail. I'm predicting we will see a tail when it gets closer. All right. That's just my prediction. I mean, based on if it's carbon dioxide and very little else, like you have some nickel atoms. Nickel is, if you have like nickel and you have other compounds there, some of them may be, compounds you could hold in your hand. That might be solid objects like nickel is, right? But the fact is, I think this object is going to end up sporting a tail of some kind before long. And, because it came from a different origin story, it may be that we're going to see a different type of tail. Maybe it's going to appear later. Is it possible it may not appear at all? I don't think so. I think that there's dust tied in. We already see nickel coming off, so we're going to see something else eventually. So I think we're going to see a tail. I just don't think it's.
Well, let me stay in the same town, but go down a different avenue about comets.
Okay.
Now I can remember in the 70s and the very early 1980s,
Kohoutek?
I was extraordinarily excited because I thought I would be around to see Halley's Comet. I had a fascination. I always wanted to see a comet. And of course, that go around for Halley's Comet was kind of a mashup. It wasn't really that great. But
that was 76.
Was that 70? I thought it was in the 80s.
No.
I thought it was 1976. Am I wrong?
Well, whatever. Regardless. Okay. It was here. And it wasn't the spectacular view.
Maybe it was it 86? I can't believe I remember this. It might have been, because I was in Florida for it. I specifically went down to Florida to see it.
But here was
wow, you're a geek. You're a space geek.
What is up with this nerd?
How can you tell?
Crap?
My shirt
He's such a nerd.
My shirt give it away?
Well, if you give me a break here, I'm going to test his nerdiness right now.
All right.
For centuries, okay, our ancestors regarded comets with fear, with dread, a portent of bad things coming, etc. Now, I always wondered why. Well, then my mind kind of snapped to Göbekli Tepe.
Okay.
Göbekli Tepe. And some of the columns that seemed to show what the experts, are suggesting that these columns depicted this comet coming in. Could it have been, Mark, a memory, if you will, perhaps embedded in our DNA, that comets can be very, very bad for the people on Earth? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I think that's going to be a cultural thing, and many cultures, they regarded comets, just like they regarded eclipses, don't forget. Solar eclipses were regarded as the sun being eaten by a giant dragon, and you beat pots and pans, and whoa, we got our sun back. We succeeded, okay? But that was cultural. There was no reality to that whatsoever. So is it possible that comets, I'm blurry. There we go. Okay, it'll get better. Is it possible then that comets were regarded with evil
dread
evil portent and dread because of culture? Absolutely, without doubt. And of course, when elementary science came along, it got worse. Why? Well, because when Halley's Comet first came around, one of the premier astronomers at the time was a guy named Flammarion. And Flammarion noted that there was carbon and nitrogen together in this cometary outflow called cyanide, cyanogen. And he said, if we go through the tail of Halley's Comet at any time, and we might, then this could possibly be dangerous. Now, like Avi Loeb of today, he didn't say it would be dangerous. He just said maybe it would be dangerous. All right. He was a popular astronomy guy. Well, as it turned out, that started a whole subculture of people selling comet pills that would make you live through a cyanide attack from a comet.
Well, it makes sense back then, especially, right? It makes sense.
That's the clickbait of that time.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly. So when you think about it, that was something that was based on an apparition of a comet showing up. And that feeds into comets being bad, evil, monstrous things that can kill people. Right. It also matters what wars are going on at the time. It matters, was anyone trying to conquer a nearby empire when that happened? Look, it's a comet. It's a sign that we can win or a sign we're going to lose.
Right.
Okay, remember, they hang on the horizon and people see this long tail. Oh, no. Without light pollution, comets were a lot brighter in the sky, So they would see these long tails and think, what is that? Oh, my. It's the gods throwing a spear at our enemies over the horizon or something like that. And over time it sets and they think, oh no, they're blowing up our enemies or whatever, or bringing them strength. I don't know. But again, it's a cultural thing. Right. It has nothing to do with the actual things.
Put it in high school parlance here. Here's another one. that it's going to come through and it's going to go close to 3 planets. And of course, there's people saying that's because it's a probe and it's checking them out for future, invasion or annihilation or whatever. In your view of this, since we don't have a lot of experience with these sort of objects that are coming in, is it more happenstance, or does it portend something greater?
It's more happenstance, I think, at the moment. We know it's coming because of the Atlas project, seeing it. Had Atlas not existed, it would have come and went. We would have never known it because it's not bright enough to be seen with the eye. You saw the picture I took. It's very, very tiny.
Of course, it's going to be much closer when it's going by these planets.
Yeah, but, right now it's inside Jupiter's orbit.
Is it?
Yeah, and it's not very bright, relatively speaking.
Right.
So it's gonna, now the thing is, it's not passing close enough to Jupiter to be destroyed by Jupiter either. By the way, Shoemaker-Levy was a comet that ended up being broken apart and hit Jupiter one piece at a time.
String of pearls, Mark.
String of pearls, right? And I actually watched it happen.
So did I.
Of course you did.
I watched it on my telescope. Watched a black dot come around when Jupiter came around. You could see a black dot, on the face of Jupiter. It's like, wow, that's where Shoemaker-Levy hit. And another one, and another one, and another one. It just went on and on. I don't think I slept for a few days there.
It was a drinking game, right?
Right? Yeah. So it was pretty cool, to see that. But this cometary object, if that's what it is not going to be getting that close to Jupiter, unfortunately. But Jupiter.
What about the proximity to Mars?
It's still going to be a long distance from Mars. I don't know the exact distance, but I guess because it's coming in the plane of our solar system, statistically, it stands a chance of passing some planet close enough. So Jupiter is going to be quite a distance from. Mars, it's going to be substantially distant from, and Venus still some distance. So if it was an intelligent species, then they would probably be carbon-based. Yes, I'm a carbon bigot. I've said that many times. Mm-hmm. Okay, because carbon is the most flexible element in the whole periodic table, can support life better than any other element. Yes, including silicon right below it, which is the most likely next one. So life is probably carbon-based, and as such, they'll have a love affair and need for oxygen to take care of all their metabolic processes and life's processes. So if you have oxygen in your atmosphere, you're a target for an extraterrestrial species. Our Earth has been spewing oxygen into the atmosphere for 2.5 billion years. So by 2 billion years, we had enough oxygen in our atmosphere that an alien civilization would have looked and said, hey, that's not going away. It must be getting replenished by something. Well, here on our planet, oxygen is made by life. Therefore, I think there's life on that planet. And so we would be a target for an extraterrestrial species. And that's something going back 2 billion years. So 7 billion year old probe coming through from a distant civilization, they wouldn't have seen the oxygen yet by the time that probe was sent here. So right off the bat, they don't know that Earth is here unless they're looking at it long after they sent the probe away, if they survived. And then they said, oh, we missed an opportunity because there's a planet over there that's blue. And it's actually, these molecules of oxygen are scattering the blue light from their sun. That's an oxygen atmosphere. Oh, there's probably life there.
Well, yeah, but going back our ancestors, at least 1 million years, okay? And Homo sapiens sapien, us, all right, and nobody really knows for sure, but we've been around roughly maybe 300,000 years, maybe, okay? So that's 300,000 years potentially out of 4.6 million years. It's a hell of a lot of time, and a lot of things could have happened that no one was here to document.
You mean 4.6 billion? 4.6 billion years? mean from the beginning of the
During
Earth?
that time span, yes.
Okay.
Up until Homo sapiens sapiens
Okay.
arrived on the scene.
Which
What I'm
is-
saying is, all that immense span of time, a lot could have happened here that nobody would have been aware of.
Oh, well, that's true.
We could have been visited 100,000 times. Who knows?
Well,
the planet.
You haven't had
planet.
you haven't had the pleasure of seeing my my History of the Earth talk I do.
No, I haven't.
You should have virtual ones that you post.
Is that the one with the roll of toilet paper?
Yes, it is. And what's good about that is, it's 117 feet long. Oxygen starts being formed around 35 feet in from the beginning of the formation of the Earth. And then by the time the present day, okay, we're looking at another, 75 feet or so of time that has to pass. So anywhere along that line, aliens could have visited us. That's
How do you keep the toilet paper from breaking?
I can show you.
John, it's my job to say the weird shit. Come on.
Here it is. Okay. This is actually the roll of toilet paper. I'm going to be doing it again soon, so I have it out. And what this is actually not toilet paper anymore. It used to be. This is now, this is actually.
Cool. Very
This is
cool, Mark.
that crepe paper stuff that you do with for wallpaper backing.
That's
So what
great.
you're saying is that your finger won't go through it. That's what you're saying.
That's correct. It can't go through.
All
And I
right.
also,
And it's not Army quality.
yeah, it's Army quality toilet paper. Yeah. So the point being, this particular talk, what I do with it is I show people the scale, and like I said, it's 117 feet long, and I drew every 4 inches. I drew the lines for the sheets, as you can see.
Mhm.
Okay, and I even numbered them because I have no life.
You got a lot of time on your hands.
Okay, but look, the truth is,
I got more respect for you now, Mark.
the truth is, this particular talk shows people the scale and the proper scale of where life on Earth developed. And what they find at the end is that there's an explosion of life that occurs starting around 250 million years ago, the Permian period. When that extinction event, which wiped out 96% of all life on the planet, okay, when that happened, other creatures filled the niches, dinosaurs.
That was a bad day.
It was a very bad day. It was a very bad year. Okay. And during that time, what ended up happening was it shook up the entire evolutionary tree of all kinds of species everywhere. Niches were emptied. Niches were then refilled. New creatures were given opportunities. And so during that whole process, the Earth changed drastically. And like I said, we're the result. But keep this in mind. Out of that whole 117 feet of this thing, okay, when you got down near the end, where that happened, where that major change, where dinosaurs died, okay, where that was 18 inches from the end. So you
kidding.
find out that they're not ancient history, they're recent history.
Now let me throw something at you. This just as you're talking about this, it's simply this will say something about my thinking process. It flashed into my mind. The year 1816. Does that click with you, Mark?
That's not the Carrington event, is it?
No, that was in the 1850s. 1816. It was called the Year Without a Summer.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Something
that. Yes.
happened, okay, and it caused chaos all around the globe, Europe especially, over here in the New World. At that time, we were still the New World.
Yeah, I remember that.
Something happened, and there was basically no summer. Crops refused to sprout, died in the fields, etc. Was that a result of a volcanic eruption, Mark? Do you know?
I thought it was, actually. I was thinking of that.
Yeah.
I believe it was a volcanic eruption.
Not Tambora.
Was that Tambora? Yeah, okay. I knew Tambora was a massive explosion, I think bigger than Krakatoa. And it was one of the largest on record. And I think that it put so much dust into the air that summers were extraordinarily cool after that. And it was a cloudy pall. I mean, not a good couple of years to come for astronomers after that, I can tell you that. Because there was dust in the stratosphere for years after that had to clear out, and ash clouds way up high.
Yeah.
So we have a question. I don't think you guys asked it yet, from Rick. How much will the new Vera C. Rubin telescope help in finding? Thank you, in finding these types of objects.
The Vera Rubin telescope is going to be instrumental, no pun intended. I actually applied to be the outreach astronomer on the project, and they wanted someone a little different than my background, I guess.
No toilet paper man.
Yeah, they didn't want that kind of outreach, I guess.
Well, tell them they ain't coming on DMR then.
Well, they just don't want someone that can wipe someone out. Oh,
there you go.
But no, Vera Rubin's going to do a great job, Rick. Thanks for asking. I'm going to have more details on Vera Rubin as soon as I talk to a few more folks on it, because it's going to be a very, very large telescope down in Chile, and it's going to be managed out of Tucson, Arizona. Which is really close to our second observatory in Benson. So I'll have time to go visit them and see what's going on. I'm actually looking forward to coming away with some details. Things have changed. There's been a few changes along the way, and I don't want to say anything out of turn because there's a lot of science that's gone into it and a lot of things that may have changed along the way. So I can't specifically say. I do know that it's going to be a ground-based telescope, of course, but high in the mountains down in Chile. And it won't be nearly as good as the James Webb, but it will be able to show us things the James Webb can't, because Vera Rubin telescope is going to look in the visible spectrum as well, when the James Webb does not. Vera Rubin will be here. James Webb is off the page, about 10 feet that way, looking in the infrared. And the reason for that is because, well, when things are far away from us, like galaxies, they accelerate away from us at a faster rate. And what happens is all their data gets redshifted down into the red. So we can realistically say there's many galaxies we've never, ever, ever, ever seen before, because all of their data, which used to be in the visible spectrum, is redshifted right out of our view into the red end of the spectrum down there. And we need a telescope that can see way out there to actually see them. And so that's kind of what James Webb's doing. So now you might think, well, what about James Webb finding planets that might be habitable? Well, it would have to look for water. It would have to look for oxygen.
Methane? Methane?
Well, yeah, cow farts, or...
Well, the organic life breaking down into methane.
Of course, yeah. It has to look for the organic compounds.
Let's keep it elevated, Mark.
Because everybody else does. So bottom line is that the James Webb can't directly look at oxygen, for instance, in the atmosphere. So you might say, well, what good is it? Well, we're looking here in the visible spectrum, the width of my image here. Okay, oxygen occurs right around here in the spectrum. Okay, actually right around here if I'm doing the red side, and it appears there. I've photographed lines of our atmosphere, spectral lines in our atmosphere using my spectral system. And so James Webb being way out there can't see them because they're in the visible spectrum. So the nice thing is that when oxygen atoms in an atmosphere collide with each other, when they bounce off of each other, they give off a signature way out there in the infrared where the James Webb can see. So by looking at those collisions, it can indirectly figure out how much oxygen is in an atmosphere, and whether it's atomic or nuclear, meaning O or O2, okay? Right. So, or O3, ozone. So it can figure those things out. So the nice thing is the James Webb isn't, handicapped in that regard. It can actually figure these things out. And that's good for us because, James Webb has been looking and finding potential planets. I think that's great.
In the next few weeks, do you expect at any of those times that you may in fact, speak to Avi Loeb?
Yeah, I mean, I have his email. I can communicate with him, and we've worked together a couple times on different projects, actually. So I don't have any reason. I know I talked to his Galileo team, so I have a
Well,
feeling
the reason I ask, Mark, is I'm sure he's keeping a close eye on this approaching object.
Yeah.
And if he came up with any new data or anything like that you could be privy to, that's what I'm thinking.
I'm not his son, so I don't think he'll share that much with me. But he's a good guy, okay, and he probably would be very careful to release anything before it's fully vetted. Everything he says actually has been kind of vetted. He's not saying anything untrue. He's just saying things that are misinterpreted. Because
of the media, social media, he has to be careful.
Yeah, but he'd rather say the truth, I think, than the truth as we all see it, than just sit back and say nothing. I think he'd rather say what's really going on or what could be going on, and I think that's fair. I don't see any reason.
So here's could be an analogous event, especially with what could possibly happen with 3i Atlas, and then your background. The Lady Fatima, May 13th, 1917, something went down on multiple, Saturdays or whatever, again and again and again, and then it did a crazy thing at the end. Since you're an astronomer, what do you think that might have been? And because of the public's lack of knowledge of astronomy and such back then, are we seeing the same thing now in a sense with people's response to the 3i?
I guess a more modernized version of it.
Yeah.
We have mass communication available now in a moment. I mean, I can talk to my observatories 2,600 miles away, open the roof, close the roof, run the telescopes from here.
Right.
All that stuff. It makes the world a lot smaller, and mass media makes the world a lot smaller. Mass communications do digital communications even more. So something along that line, like the Fatima events, would probably move a lot faster and in the modern world because of that. So I think that I'm certain that it's probably just a faster moving similar thing. Now, is it untrue? Now the question is,
what was it?
Yeah, what was it? Well, nobody knows. Nobody knows what it was.
Well, right. No, but it's very interesting for me in that I did a lot of research on it and such, and it was like there was photography available at that time, and we have photography. There were people who stayed alive decades and decades and decades after who were actually there and stood in the drying mud and all that stuff. So, and they were adults, maybe possibly uneducated to astronomy and like that, but they were adults, maybe not prone to being, fanciful. So we don't know, which is interesting, right? Because we do have evidence, quote unquote, and yet we still don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what does the church call those? Miracles, I guess?
Yeah. That was referred to as one from, what was it, May all the way up through October. These events kept happening.
It's just, I don't know. I find it it's not a bunch of school kids. You know what I'm getting at there. It's not a bunch of school kids who feed off of each other on what they may or may not have seen.
When you talk about that, and I'm of course very familiar with the Fatima phenomenon, I'll use that term, or miracle, but I immediately think about John Keel. Keel's explanation of ultra-terrestrials. Somebody was putting on a stage play. That's what I think happened. Somebody was putting on a stage play for whatever reason, but that's the only thing that ever made sense to me. Do I really believe the mother of God came down to Earth and talked to those children. Well, I
It was
find
like a
it more
celestial
believable.
Punch and Judy show. Is that what you're saying, Don?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
no, really.
Mark, since you're
I believe it is possible.
since you're the astro guy, do you have any thoughts of knowing what we know of what happened, and the sun evidently, getting brighter or coming down or whatever? If you were to have a prosaic response to something like that with your background, what would it be?
Well, Mark Center, that to me, before he answers, sounded like some type of UFO, unidentified flying object. That's my take on that. So,
Mark,
tell me I'm nuts, crazy, whatever, but that makes more sense.
I wouldn't say you're nuts or crazy. My first thought would be, was there a solar eclipse at the time? And, you can't really see a partial solar eclipse of someone, dim over time and then get brighter again. Was that what we're talking about? How long, over what time period did the sun, brighten? That wasn't that like during the last apparition or something like that? And that happened?
Yes.
Okay. So, but I think at the time there was no eclipse. So that's out of the picture. So what caused it? Could it have been a dust cloud? Could it have been from a volcanic eruption that dimmed the sun and then it came back?
Right.
And became bright again. As far as I know, there was no eruptions in 1916, 1917. Yeah, October 1917. So as far as I know, there were no eruptions at that time, so it couldn't have been that. So when you weed out all the things we know it could be and figure out what's left, right? Could it have been some type of storm? Was there a solar storm? Was the sun's activity particularly low or particularly high at that time? And the answer is
giant sunspot.
No, not that big, right? But still, we don't see sunspots as a dimming of the sun, unless you're using very sensitive instruments. And of course, they didn't exist back then. So, what was it? Now the question is, could it have been a hoax? Could it have been children just making up a hoax, and then seeing mass hallucination take over in some cases, and seeing the mass media, as it was at the time, just jumping on board and saying, hey, this must have really happened, or this was happening, and look what's happening. It's Mary of the Rosary or whatever. I mean, could it have been a hoax? And the answer is yes, it could have. Okay, because that's one of the things that can be said. We know it wasn't an eclipse. It wasn't a volcanic eruption. All right. So, but it could have been a hoax.
Well, it's on the list, yeah.
And it could have been an actual event. And where's the proof of either? None. There is none. No one ever came forward and said, yeah, we hoaxed it. We were just playing. Johnny and I decided they would say it, whatever. It's nothing like that happened. And so after the first initial events, everything later was interpreted as such a miracle event again. Did the sun really get brighter? We don't know. Did it? I don't know.
Right, because it's kind of fed on itself, and the photos we have are useless.
Yes. So the bottom line is it'll always remain a mystery. And if you're religious, then it's a religious experience. If you like UFOs, okay, maybe it's a UFO event. Okay. If you're into deciphering hoaxes, maybe it's a hoax event. I don't know. And I can't say one way or the other. But Don knows a lot about it. I don't know as much as Don does about this. So there's a lot of things that I won't say correctly here. But I'm just offering that it's possible it was a hoax that got legs. We've seen that too, like with Ed. Was it Ed? What's his name? Down the Gulf Breeze.
Ed Walters. Yeah.
That was a hoax, and I was able to.
Jesus toast. Come on, man.
The Jesus toast.
I believe it.
Well, and there's even the possibility that the kids at the school in Australia and Africa, those could have been mass.
Good point.
Mass something or others, right? I mean, we just don't know.
I mean, I know. I know the guy that did that story about the school in Africa, and Randall Nickerson, a great guy, very dedicated and great researcher. He's someone you should have on your show. Okay. And he can talk about the whole event there and tell you the reasons why he believes it's truthful. And I'm on the side of thinking that the way he portrayed it in the movie was actually pretty accurate to the real telling of it. So I think that maybe that actually happened. For instance, the Ariel school, the Ariel phenomenon, I think is the name of the movie.
Right.
Great movie. Randall did a great job. And so I think that was real. And as far as I could tell, I mean, no one has any way to say otherwise. So keeping an open mind, I'd say, well, maybe it is real, and like other events, I also definitely don't believe that the Grover's Mill Martian invasion was real.
Well, yours is no fun now.
Grover's Mill is real, though, but not the invasion.
Not the Martian invasion. Exactly. And South Park, Colorado really exists.
Yeah, I live there.
So there you go. So
when's this thing going to come through? At its closest.
Well, it's never going to get close to us, right?
No, it could be millions of miles.
We're going to be in a different position.
Yeah.
It's going to be coming through here. I think closest approach to Earth is sometime in October, and I think closest approach to the sun is somewhere in December.
So between October and December, expect a lot of horse shit on social media.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? There's nothing you can do to stop it. Just
no.
Republish what I posted.
Yeah. In fact, I sent that out to Don and Gerry and a couple of people that you guys don't know.
All your emails go to my spam, Mark.
As well it should. And
all your movies.
It was interesting that I do have a couple of friends who are just that sort of personality where
they call me an idiot.
Not so much an idiot. It's just that they're much
more of a killjoy.
They're much more akin to the 30-40% from Loeb than anything that you might have to say. That's right. They're just more akin to it, right?
Yeah, I might be a little bit of a killjoy, which was, by the way, a great science fiction series, if you remember it.
Well, yes.
Killjoys.
Yes, the Killjoys. Yeah, good one.
So, bottom line is, I just speak possibilities. I don't jump into a camp just because there's some evidence for something. I'm very hard on the data. Everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, for instance, this season of Proof is out there.
And that's very commendable, Mark.
I hope so. I mean, for this season of Proof is out there, there's 2 stories I couldn't explain, and I said so.
I saw the photo.
Yeah, I noticed that the host pretty much didn't go with you at all. Watch that one; it cracked me up.
Yeah, Tony Harris is a good guy. He's the host.
I like that show.
Yeah,
I like that show, not just because you're on it.
It's that's the thing though. That's a show that I was willing to do because they weren't gonna take my words and edit them.
Right.
And had me say things I didn't really say.
I say it's one of the better shows in that at least they look at what they have access to, and they try to make a call, and an honest call. And I can't think of too many shows that do that.
Not only do they do an honest call, they also admit when they make the call, as we know for right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing I like is the producer Miguel Sancho. He said to me during the seasons, he'll say things like, So, Mark, aren't any of these real UFOs? And I said, Miguel, no. So far as I can tell, no. He goes, okay, all right. Well, we're going to run with that. You know, he didn't pressure me to actually say something's a UFO for ratings and things like that.
Right.
So,
right.
And when you get treated like that, you know, you want to stick around. You want to be part of that because it's actually a good show when someone is allowed to say things that are true and not make up stuff that may not be.
So let's talk about the bubble above Skinwalker Ranch. Oh, wait a minute. Let's not.
You know, I have a friend who some of you may know, David Mason. He's a FLIR inventor, good friend. And David and I have been talking, and he's been on Skinwalker Ranch. And I think that between us and David, you know, being on the show, he's kind of, you know, has his role in the show occasionally. Mm-hmm. But I think between David and I, we could figure it out. We could actually, from a distance, we don't have to be there. We can do it from long distance because I think it's a long distance phenomenon.
Well, you know, I had kind of a couple of close encounters with Skinwalker going back quite a few years ago when George Knapp and Colin Kellner came out with their book on Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
My wife and I went over to Vegas, met with Knapp, had dinner with him, and I did everything but literally get down on my hands and knees and beg him to intercede with Bigelow that I could go out there for several days.
Yeah.
And root around. Never happened. Wouldn't entertain it.
Not allowed. Not allowed.
But Bigelow, okay. Not George. And then a friend of mine who knew or knows Travis Taylor, all right, got in touch with me when Travis got apparently irradiated. You know about that, Mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Me? Talk to me?
Yeah, you. Yes.
Oh, I heard the story, but I didn't know if I should put any stock in it because I don't know if it was actual or just made up for a show or something.
Well, regardless, he claimed he was irradiated, and then he was urinating blood. This is what I was told.
Well, I want to party with that guy.
Yeah, really. And so I asked my friend. I said, well, you know, I'd love to bring him on DMR and interview him. So I said, ask him if he would entertain that.
Not allowed.
And he did. Okay. And Travis got back to him and said, yeah, tell him, sure. This is my email. Have him write me, whatever. And I did. Never heard back from him. And I wrote him several times. Okay, to make sure it got through. Not a word. Now, that told me a lot. Now, it's not like I'm an unknown quantity, okay? And a lot of people will suggest I can be a hard ass.
Not
and
you.
Maybe that's why.
Not you, honey.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he didn't want to talk to me, but I always found that very problematic.
Well, you shouldn't because, again, I talk Gerry down off that show a number of times, and I do save them all. If you would like the whole series of the newest one I have, I never watch them.
Yeah, after let me tell you something, Mark. Mark down here fucking talks me out of stopping watching the show. What does he do? He sends me the videos to watch, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch that. Why do you get me to stop watching it?
It's just so much horseshit, man. That's why, again, the show you're on, Mark, at least there's science involved, true science, and not this horseshit of the drone won't fly in this episode. Hey, it flies in this episode. Oh, the rocket won't go up in this episode. Hey, it went up in this episode. It's like, I'm out, man. I'm freaking out.
Like all my task as their analyst for this series is to make sure that I give my best opinion based on the data.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. There have been numerous cases where I've changed my opinion when the data was insufficient, but I've changed my opinion that was pro-UFO event, that went to pro-UFO event from non, because of the witness testimony. And sometimes the witnesses are really somewhat unimpeachable. And, as someone who's had a lot of polygraphs in my lifetime because of work I've done for the Navy and stuff for different programs, I got really good, because most of my friends were polygraph examiners, at understanding how people lie, and the tells and the twitches and the way they move and the way they do things, little habitual things like, yeah, no, that's true. That's a lie. When they kind of look away, eye contact's very important, So when you look at, and that's minor, and Don knows about this stuff, being a former law enforcer, he knows.
Well, guys, I'm just looking at the clock. We got like maybe 20 seconds left. Mark Dantonio, do you have anything coming up you want to let the audience know about?
Yeah, I'll be in Shag Harbor next month, in the beginning of October. Got to speak there for the first time. Just came back from Colorado. We may have a third observatory site in Colorado.
Do you have all this information up on your site, Sky Tours?
Well, it's skytourlive.org. We're a nonprofit.
Well, buddy, this has been great. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
You're all good to me all the time, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't either. We're going to have to discuss that.
No, don't.
I also want to say thank you to the chat, because great chat tonight, guys.
That's it for tonight. UAP Crossfire Thursday. We're going to have a very special show on there. A lot of it's going to cover the disclosure subject matter. And tune in 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 Eastern. That's it tonight, guys. Marc Dantonio, thank you so much. Mark Center.
Thank you, guys.
Gerry Kissell. Guys, once again, great. Thank you.
God bless Sam and Dean Winchester.